All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 123. And today, we are going to talk about role playing. So I'm doing this little mini series thing here. My orange juice to keep my body from destroying me today. I'm doing this little mini series here where I have been doing this series where I go like, what is a fighter? And we talk about kind of the history of fighters and where they, how they've kind of shown up in various TTRPGs, and then we try to kind of design our own template for a fighter in a mythical TTRPG that doesn't exist. And I kept doing that for a while, and I realized we had never actually gone over some of the kind of really important aspects of a TTRPG, which are what's referred to in D&D 5th edition as the three pillars of the D&D. But you can really, it really fits just about any TTRPG. And those three pillars are combat, exploration, and role-playing. So my last video on this subject, we talked about combat systems and action economies and all those different things. Today, we are going to talk about role-playing in TTRPGs. Now, let's start off with kind of defining, well, what do you mean by role-playing? Role-playing is effectively all of the non-combat interactions that the player characters have with the world. Things like social encounters, those are going to be role-playing. You can kind of classify things like picking locks and other stuff like that as role-playing, or you can lump that into exploration as well. But because of the systems we're going to talk about, the power role-playing, I'm going to kind of lump all those things into role-playing, and exploration is going to be designed as really, interacting with the world, whereas role-playing is interacting with specific pieces of the world, NPCs, specific environments, things like that. Role-playing is where the story comes from. Now, in a TTRPG, they have rules and guidelines for doing a lot of things, because most of the people that come into TTRPGs, like in the example of combat, the vast majority of people that play TTRPGs have never actually been in real medieval combat. They don't The majority of them have no idea how to use a sword. Obviously, none of them know how to use magic, because magic isn't real, folks. And so they create these rules and guidelines to basically kind of help people do things that they can't actually do, and they have no actual experience in. The same thing is true about role-playing. Well, what are you talking about? I can talk to people. Yeah, I mean, I can too. I went to school for role playing. I was an actor at one point. I've also studied psychology. I have management training and a degree in it. And part of that involves what's called workforce or team force development. So I understand a lot about how to deal with people. Doesn't mean I'm any good at it. And just because one person playing might have more experience than others doesn't really give you a solid enough structure where you can effectively improvise stories that feel real. And when we boil down tabletop RPG rules in general, that's kind of the entire purpose of all of these rules and systems and things like that, is to effectively make it so anybody can sit down at a table and improvise situations involving that aspect of the game that feel somewhat real. So, when we're talking about role playing, there's two like basic systems that tend to exist for role playing in general. The first and the more basic version of it is an attribute based role playing system. And what attribute based is effectively when you create your character, you will have this list of attributes. In combat, those attributes do things like your strength might increase the damage that you do, or your intelligence might make it easier for you to cast spells and things like that. When we're talking about an attribute-based role-playing system, that means that any time you're trying to do something where there's a chance of failure, you are going to roll some sort of die, and then you are going to add something related to your attribute. It might just be like, if we look at Dungeons and Dragons in general, a 12 in strength means you have a +1 modifier. And that's a really, really common thing in a lot of different TTRPGs, is they will have a static number for your attributes, and then they will have a modifier attached to that number. There are also TTRPGs where your number is the modifier. Things like the Powered by the Apocalypse, like Avatar Legends. You literally just have numbers that go that can go from 1 to 3, and that's what you add to your rolls when you're rolling that particular attribute. Fun fact, when 5th edition was in the early stages of design, back when it was still called D&D Next, because of how complicated the skill system had become in 3rd edition and 4th edition, and we'll talk about skill systems in a second here, the original version of 5th edition was supposed to be an attribute-based role-playing system, where you actually don't roll a persuasion check to do something. You just roll a charisma check, and then you might get bonuses from other things, but it's entirely based on your charisma. There isn't a list of skills that you can have. So that's an attribute-based role-playing system. The other side is what's called a skill-based role-playing system, or what I refer to as a skill-based. I have no idea if there's actual names for this stuff. I've never actually studied game design in like school or anything like that. I just know what I know. So skill-based is exactly like that. You will have a list of skills. Most skill-based TTRPGs have ways to specialize in certain skills, whether they call it training, whether it's just investing more points in it, whatever. And so whenever you are interacting with the world, the GM or the player, depending on which TTRPG you're playing, will pick a skill that they feel fits into this particular situation. For example, again, to use D&D, because it's very, very well known, if I want to convince somebody to give me a discount on something, and I decide to be very aggressive about it, it's like, hey, I only have $4. And I'd be really upset if this costs more than $4. How much does it cost? My DM might go, okay, roll me an intimidation check. Now, skill systems are still based on your attributes for the most part when we're talking about role-playing. Like, again, for D&D, your intimidation is a combination of your base charisma score plus any bonuses you have to intimidation, whether that's through being trained or specialized in it, or if you have some other benefit due to a magic effect or something like that. Those are all different things that can help your skills. Now, obviously, skill system is going to be a little bit more complex than an attribute-based role-playing system. At the same time, it's also more limiting. And that's when problems started coming up in 3rd edition that they tried to correct in 4th edition. And then, again, by the time 5th edition came around, they're like, we're just not doing skill systems anymore. We're going to do attributes. Because what will happen is the more skills you have, the less useful each skill is. If you've got 5 skills in your entire game, well, your skill system has to be able to be utilized for anything the player can do in the game. So if they want to climb up a wall, well, you need some kind of a skill for that. You need something to be able to test them on it. Otherwise, it's either impossible and you just can't do it, or it's so easy that there's no reason for you to even make a roll. You just automatically succeed. Anything that is not either completely impossible that you can never do or so easy you will always be able to do it needs to have a skill in a skill system. And if, again, Dungeons and Dragons, they have a pretty nice, 5th edition specifically has a pretty nice balance between a decent number of skills so that different characters can have different things that they excel at, but the skills are broad enough that they can cover quite a few different things. Things like the athletics skill. The athletics skill can be used to break down a door. It can be used to climb up a wall. It can be used to hug someone really, really hard. Like anything that really involves using a lot of strength is going to be done through athletics. The acrobatics skill can be used to balance on a rope. It can be used to keep your feet under you after a high fall. And there are certain situations where an athletics check and an acrobatics check kind of both fit into something that you're trying to do. Like maybe you're trying to climb up a wall. And traditionally, according to the rules, that's an athletics check. But you go, I've got a really high acrobatics to score, and instead of just brute forcing my way up the wall, I want to like parkour my way up the wall. Can I use acrobatics instead? But then you can get into really, really specific things. Like if we go all the way back to 3rd edition D&D, which I'm going to go over here. So I just want to look at a list of all the different skills. So in 3.5, D&D 3.5, these are the different skills that were available. You had appraise, auto-hypnosis is not what I'm familiar with, balance, bluff, climb, concentration, control, shape, craft, decipher, script, diplomacy, disable device, disguise, escape artist, forgery, gather information, handle animal, handle humanoid. This is another one I don't remember ever being a thing. Heal, hide, intimidate, jump, knowledge, listen, lucid dreaming, martial law. A few of these are very, very specific from specific splat books. Move silently, open lock, perform, profession, psycraft, ride, search, sense motive, sleight of hand, speak language, blah, 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 blah. Every single language. Spellcraft, spot, survival, swim, true speak, tumble, use magic device, use psionic device, use rope. So as you can see, there is this massive list of skills, and some of those have sub-skills built into them. Things like knowledge, you don't have like an overall knowledge. You might have arcane knowledge, or animal knowledge, plant knowledge. And so because of that, that meant when you have this many different skills, you start to run into the problem of a character that wants to be good at a very kind of specific list of the things. Like, good example, rogues. Rogues would get a decent amount of skill points because in order to do rogue stuff, there was a ton of different skills that they needed to be able to do their stuff. They needed disable device. They needed hide. They needed open lock because that's differently. They also needed move silently. They needed the search skill. They needed the sleight of hand skill. And then, just to make sure bad things weren't happening to them, they also needed the spot skill, the listen skill, and what was the other one? I thought there was one other one that was used to kind of tell when bad things are happening. And then, to be perfectly honest, tumble was also a really useful skill for rogues. And so because of that, doing something as simple as disabling a trap would require a bunch of different skill rolls because, well, first of all, you had to spot the trap. So you had to use either your spot skill or was there... Can't remember if they had a specific skill to spot traps. I don't think so. So you had to use your spot skill specifically to know that the trap existed. Then you had to go over it and use the disable device skill. So to do one very, very basic thing, hey, get rid of this trap, you have to use a combination of two skills. And then if the door out of there is locked, well, now you need to use the open lock skill. Was that what it was? Yeah, open lock skill. And the more skills you get, the more limited each skill works. Whereas in D&D 5th edition, to disable a trap, open a lock, and do a few other things, it's all just a thieves tool check, which we'll talk about tools in a little bit here. So yeah, there are benefits to a skills-based system because it does make it easier for players to just know, oh, if I want to be able to do this, then this is the skill that I use. But the more skills you give, the more limited you're going to make your characters in general. Either they're going to have to hyper-focus on one specific set of skills to be able to do something, or they're just not going to be able to do things very well because they have a little bit in everything, the whole jack of all trades, master of none. When we go back to an attribute-based system, skill checks and things like that start becoming negotiations, where instead of going, oh, I want to use my diplomacy to get me through this, they can go, hey, I want to influence this person, and the dungeon master will go, okay, well, that'll be a charisma check, because influencing people and your ability to affect other people generally is controlled by your charisma. They go, well, I want to be kind of really, really aggressive, and I want to convince them by bending this bar in front of them. Okay, well, I guess we can call that a strength check instead of a charisma check. At the same time, as much as, yes, that does mean that it's a lot easier for players to be able to do things, and there's that kind of conversation as opposed to just click the right button and see if the number is high enough. An attribute based system or a skill system that just has very, very few skills will run into the problem of everything can become a negotiation, and that can slow down play. And if you do have players that like to be argumentative or are quote unquote trying to win, that can create some issues that way as well. So neither system is better or worse than the other. It's just that they are going to appeal to different styles of players. For players that just want to be able to do the exact things that they want to do, a skill-based system, especially a large skill-based role-playing system, is going to appeal to them a lot, because they will know as soon as they go into a situation, okay, these are the things I can do because this is how the skills work and this is what checks are made using those skills, and I know this. For players that want to be a little bit more fluid in how they play their character and want to focus on a much more narrative style of play, an attribute-based role-playing system is going to feel better to them, because they can go, well, I'm going to describe how my character does this, and then we're going to figure out which attribute that more closely follows. So those are the things that power the system. Effectively, those are kind of like the action economies when we talked about combat systems. It's effectively what it was. These are things that power it. But what about, well, how do you do role playing? Because just because you have those systems doesn't mean that, you know, I make a list of skills, now I have a role playing system. No, because you have to figure out how those skills are going to interact. And again, we have kind of two different ways that can happen. You can have the more kind of narrative focused thing, where basically anytime you're not in combat, there really are no actions. There's really no rules or anything like that says you can only do this many times or anything. It's all based on the narrative. And again, I refer to that as a narrative form role-playing system. It's basically, if you're not in initiative, you can do whatever you want. You can just make as many checks as feels natural. Time will pass as it feels natural. On the other side, you can have what I refer to as an encounter-based role-playing system. And this is where they put very similar limitations on role-playing encounters that they do on combat encounters. Okay, you have turns, you have actions, and certain skills are going to take certain kinds of actions. And everybody gets a turn, and you know, you might even roll initiative to see who goes first. Again, both of these systems have their benefits and drawbacks. Narrative, and it's going to be very similar to an attribute-based system versus a skill-based system. Narrative, again, is going to allow freedom for the players to kind of do what they want and tell the stories that they want, but you're going to come into issues when there's not kind of hard and firm rules. Another thing that a narrative-based role-playing system is going to create issues with, that's not as big a deal with an attribute-based system, because there's still some structure there, is the idea of paralysis of choice. If you've never heard this term before, paralysis of choice is basically when you give someone so many different choices that simply because there's just so many things available to them, they don't know what to do. They call this paralysis of choice. It's one of the reasons why introductory adventures in general are relatively linear in most tabletop RPGs, and they don't present a ton of choices to the players, because the purpose of it is to get brand new players to figure out how the system works. Once they understand the system, then you can drop them in the sandbox and let them do whatever they want. But something I have seen over and over and over again, at conventions, at friendly local game stores, is a new player sits down at the table. You give them a pre-generated character sheet so that they can just get into the action. The dungeon master explains what's going on. They turn to the new player. Okay, what do you want to do? And the player goes, what can I do? And the dungeon master goes, anything, whatever you want to do. And the player goes, Ford. That's paralysis of choice. So a narrative-based role-playing system where anytime you're not in combat, it's just kind of describe what you want to do. We'll figure out a role and we'll go with it. Again, can be very enticing to people that like that style of open-ended storytelling. But for people that are not used to that, for people that don't really have great improv skills, don't understand how storytelling works, not having any sort of structure in that place can be really, really intimidating and can actually cause them to not role play at all. So on the other side, encounter-based role-playing system basically treats a role-playing encounter the same way that you treat combat, where, okay, We are now in a role-playing encounter. So everybody, you still have the same action economy from combat. You have a movement, you have a major action and a minor action. And doing these particular skills or these things will cost you a major action. And doing these things will cost you a minor action. And movement isn't really as big a deal in role-playing encounters because you're not trying to flank the target, so you get a better chance to give for them to give you a discount on your staff. Again, benefits to that. It gamifies the role-playing encounter, which will encourage some people that don't enjoy the kind of flowery storytelling aspect of role-playing. It may encourage them to role-play even more because now it's not, oh, we are telling a story and all the people are saying the pretty words and then a butterfly appears. Ooh, isn't that so amazing? It turns into a similar system to combat. Oh, this is our win goal. This is our win condition. What do I do to make it so we get to that win condition? So there's benefits in that way. There's also the fact that by having that structure, it makes it a little bit easier on the dungeon master to allow the players to do unexpected things. When there is a structure in place already, instead of having to go, okay, well, if you're trying to do that, I guess we can call that this skill, and I guess we'll have you roll it in the difficulty. But here, when there's an actual structure, you can go, okay, you're trying to do this. Well, let's say that you're trying to intimidate these pirates into getting off the ship, so you guys don't have to do combat. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I think what I want to do is just come onto the ship, take my great axe out, and just bury it into the deck of the ship, spit in both my hands, clap them together, pick it up, and goes, who's next? Okay. Well, to get to the middle of the ship, we're going to call that your move action, and that's, slamming it into the ground because that's a big thing. We're going to call that your action to roll this intimidation check. You still have a minor action, which might be used to maybe clue your friends in to what's going on, like maybe kind of give them a look or something. So things like that can be very, very beneficial. If you look at the 2d20 system that Modiphius uses for a lot of their different tabletop RPGs, the one that I have the most experience with is the Dune RPG, which is a phenomenal RPG. They have a single basically system for resolving any sort of conflict. And by conflict, I mean any time you would need to roll the dice, they have a single system that they use for everything. It's the same system they use for combat, for role-playing encounters, for picking a lock. Everything is the same. Sorry, my phone just turned on for no reason. I thought I was getting a message. By creating this system that you just use in every single time you need to resolve a conflict, all you have to do is kind of figure out, okay, well, this is going to be your asset, and this is going to be your target, and now we just plug in the numbers to the traditional formula. And it works remarkably well because it allows for, again, it allows for combat, which is generally going to be your most complicated thing. In almost every single tabletop RPG, unless the TTRPG is specifically designed around avoiding combat, the most rules that are going to be in the book are going to be around combat in some way, shape, or form. The combat section of the book, and then all the class abilities, the majority of your class abilities are going to be for combat. Because again, combat is the thing that the vast majority of TTRPG players have the least experience in, especially medieval combat with magic. It's just not something that anyone has ever done in real life. Because again, magic isn't real. And the few people that actually do understand weapon-based, like medieval combat, understand that the rules that they have in most tabletop RPGs are not 100% or 50% accurate to how actual combat works, because humans in general are very, very squishy. And so it really doesn't take much to take us out of combat. Like, just get, like, you could be full plate mail, you get hit with a sword in the right spot, you're done just once. Not like, oh, it was a 4 hour long. Nope, they just nick you once, you're done. So by having the exact same system for combat that they use for role-playing and kick encounters, and having it effectively scalable to where you can have very simplistic combat or very simplistic role-playing encounters where it is effectively just a single roll with maybe a modifier or two, or you can have very, very complex where there's multiple things you have to keep track of. Like in a combat scenario, you could have 3 different enemies and you have to keep track of their hit points separately. The same thing is true about role-playing encounters, where you can have 3 different results that you're trying to get, and depending on what you do and how you use your assets and things like that, you might make this one get closer to succeeding while this one gets further away. And that scalable system means that you can resolve just about anything. And it works really well. Like everything from duel style combat, where it's just one-on-one, all the way up to like full-on army versus army worldwide warfare is all resolved with the same system. And it's all effectively an encounter-based role-playing system. Again, going back to D&D, because that's what most people are familiar with, or if you watch this channel, if we look at the Essence 20 system, the Essence 20 system for role-playing and kick encounters tends to be much closer to a narrative-based role-playing system. And 5th edition is a narrative-based role-playing system. Can you have quote-unquote role-playing encounters where you use actions and bonus actions and things like that? Yes, but it's not very common, and it's not addressed super well in the books. I think there's some stuff in the Dungeon Master's Guide that has kind of guidelines for doing that, but Dungeons and Dragons in itself is much more of a narrative-based combat system. And the same thing is true about Essence 20. You have all of your different skills, but when you're doing role-playing and kick encounters, and I mean role-playing system, not combat system, when you're doing role-playing encounters, it's just narrative. You know, you do this, you might roll a check or something like that, but there isn't a whole lot of structure. However, if we go back one edition, if we go back to 4th edition, I talk about 4th edition a lot. It's my favorite version of D&D. It is extremely fun. They introduced probably my favorite encounter-based role-playing system that has ever existed, and they called them skills challenges. And I'm actually going to look up the rules so I don't misquote them here, because it's been a while. All right, so roll a skills challenge. Where are you? I have the damn book. All right, forget it. I'm just going to run it from memory because I can't find the actual text. So, skill challenges in 4th edition was something that was introduced, I believe, in the 4th edition DMG 1. They had multiple DMGs in 4th edition. They had multiple everythings in 4th edition. This book right here, that is the second player's handbook, I think. I can't see and I can't turn that far. Anyway, what a skills challenge was it was a role playing encounter, and basically the way that it would work is you would either roll initiative or decide on an initiative. Both of them will work, and you would be given a goal that you need to complete. It could be convincing the council that you are innocent of this crime. It could be disabling this incredibly complex magic circle that's trying to summon a being into existence that you don't want. It could be disabling this very complex security system. So the the skill challenge starts off by the dungeon master explaining, "Hey, this is the goal." Now, some skill challenges will actually give a list of skills that the players can use. You can use Arcana to disrupt the ritual. You can use athletics to break something. You can use sleight of hand to try and change one of the runes into something else. And each one of those skills would have a different difficulty class associated with it, because some things are just easier to do in certain or are going to be more influential in certain situations than other ones. Other skill challenges would just be, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. You guys need to go. And then they would say, okay, you need to get so many successes before so many failures. And the basic rule of thumb was you needed twice the number of successes as failures to be able to win. So you need to get 6 successes before 3 failures, or 12 successes before 6 failures. And then what would happen is either in initiative or just whoever decides to go first would get to choose a skill. They would do it. The next person could not use the same skill that the person before them had used. So they would have to choose another one. And that would go until everybody did it, and then it would come back to the top. Now, when the first person got to go again, they were not allowed to use the skill that was just used or the skill that they had used the turn before. And then it would keep going until either enough failures happen that you failed the skills challenge, or enough successes happen that you succeeded. And it was a fantastic system, because it not only made it very, very simple to understand, okay, this is how it works. If you were playing the game, you could sit there and understand. It's like, okay, I need to pick a skill that I'm good at so I can roll above the number. Makes sense. But it also forced players to be creative. And there were modifications to how skill challenges could work. It could be no one could use the same skill in the same turn. No one could ever repeat a skill would be another one, which also meant that until all of them had been used, things like that. But it would force the players to get more creative, because, you might have, 2 players that are both really good at Arcana, but they can't both use Arcana. So they're going to have to try a different thing. And even if they spread it out so that both of them can use Arcana, the next turn that comes around, they won't be able to do. So it was a really, really great way to deal with a lot of different situations and still give the players that bit of control and that bit of structure. That's a really good example of an encounter-based role-playing system. So now that we have, the things that we're going to use to resolve, and then the systems that are going to be kind of the structure for how the resolution works, well, what else is there in role-playing in general? Well, now we can talk about basically extra stuff that you can use to change your skills or change your attributes, allow for other things. And I refer to that as like a tool system. In 5th edition, we have quite a few different sets of tools. You have thieves' tools. You have various creation tools, like you have alchemy tools, or tinkering tools, things like that. And basically what it is this additional thing, which is a physical object, either allows you to do something that you normally couldn't, like thieves' tools allow you to pick locks, which you can't do with your bare hands. Or tinkering tools might allow you to try and modify this clockwork system to make the door work, where you couldn't do that with just smacking your head against it. Or the other thing that they can do is give you bonuses to the things. Like if you're proficient in thieves' tools, well, that means that anything you're going to use the thieves' tool for is going to give you a bonus that you normally wouldn't have doing just a dexterity check. In the Essence 20 system, they have a similar kind of thing. They refer to them as kits. And kits do exactly that. They either give you the ability to do something you normally wouldn't be able to do, or they give you some sort of a bonus to that. So in a role-playing system, whether we're doing a narrative-based system, an attribute-based system, a skill-based system, or an encounter-based system, having a separate system of tools that allow you to kind of modify is going to give the players just that little bit extra bit of structure and reward for how they could create their character. And the only limitations you really need to decide upon is, okay, well, what is going to be necessary to use these tools? Are you going to need to be trained in them? Like, if you were to give me a set of lockpicks, I couldn't pick a lock. I don't know how to pick a lock. I've never picked a lock before in the entirety of my life. So simply just having a set of lockpicks is not going to give me the ability to do something I normally couldn't. However, if you are playing in kind of a modern or futuristic setting, you might have a tool called an auto lock, where simply by having it, you can put it on the door, push a bunch of buttons, and it will pick the lock for you. So tools like that actually give you abilities that you don't have are going to be different than tools that, if you have training or if you have abilities, they will allow you to do things, but they still require you to have some sort of investment to use them. The same thing is true about like a disguise kit. Again, I went to school for 2 years as a theater major. One of the courses I had to take that I actually really, really enjoyed was a makeup course, because it was a stage theater degree. And if you are involved in stage theater, or stage acting theater, you have to understand how makeup works, because you are going to have to do your own makeup sometime in your career. Whether it's little touch-ups between scenes where you don't have time to go to the makeup artist, or when you're doing kind of a low-budget production where there are no makeup artists, you are the makeup artist. You have to learn how to do your own makeup. And it was a single semester long course, and I learned so much in that single semester. It blew my mind. The only class I missed was trauma makeup. I never got to learn how to do scars and bruises and stuff like that officially, but I had all the documentation and everything like that. So I taught myself eventually how to do bruises and scars. But it was phenomenally useful. So if you give me a quote-unquote disguise kit, which is a makeup kit, I can do some pretty impressive stuff with it. Like, I understand how prosthetics work. I understand how to use makeup to change facial features. I know one of the first times I got to use that was I had a theater near where I lived at the time, and they were doing the musical Oliver, and they just couldn't find someone to play a character named Mr. Brownlow. If you're familiar with the show, Mr. Brownlow is an important person in the plot, but they're not a big part in the show. They show up for like a couple scenes, barely, but they're a huge driver of the end plot. And so they were just looking for someone that could do a British accent. Like, that's it was 4 weeks until they opened, and they were still looking for this. The production had been going for like a month and a half, and auditions had been 2 or 3 months previous. So they were getting kind of desperate. Like, we just need someone that can do a believable British accent. I can do how many? I can do a dozen of them. How many do you want? And so I came in, and Mr. Brownlow is a very elderly gentleman. And so when I came in, they're like, yeah, you need to look like you're 60 or something. Okay, I can do that. So they gave me this prosthetic mustache, which I hated because it itched, and I had to attach it with spirit gum because I couldn't grow my own mustache at that point. So I had to attach it with spirit gum, which is horrible and smells really bad and hurts like hell. I did not like using spirit gum. But then everything else, I just used makeup. I didn't use any prosthetics or anything. And I drew these like really big, deep circles under my eyes, and I put all these wrinkles on. And the thing about stage makeup is from like 10 feet away, it looks amazing. From 2 feet away, you look like a freak. But I had learned how to do this makeup so well from this amazing teacher that even like 2 to 3 feet away, I still looked old. Like if you got really, really close, you could see that it was makeup. But from like a foot or two away, people still thought that I was really old, to the point where I think I was 19 at the time. After the show is over, the cast is going out for drinks afterward. They go, hey, Jody, do you want to come out with us for drinks? I said, I can't. They say, oh, why? I said, I'm not old enough. They went, what? I said, yeah, I'm only 19. They're like, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I'm only 19. But I was a very professional person at 19, and my makeup looked really good, that they assumed that most of the aging stuff was just stuff that I was highlighting, because that's another thing you do in makeup. So anyway, getting back to tools and things like that, a disguise kit is very useful for someone that understands how to disguise things. But at the same time, if you have a magical disguise kit, where you basically just tell it what you want it to do and it disguises you that way, well, then that's a different kind of thing. So kind of deciding how you want your tools to work, whether you want them to give the ability to do things that you normally couldn't, or you just want them to be bonuses. All of those things will make your role-playing systems in general feel that much more robust. In the same way that having a weapon system and different kind of weapons are going to make your combat system feel more robust and more interesting, and is going to reward people for equipping their characters a certain way, the tool system is basically your equipment for role-playing and encounters. Yeah. So I had a question on the last video where they asked, well, how would you do a system? And I'm going to look up the question real quick here, because for the life of me, I can't remember the game that they mentioned, but I know the game. Because a buddy of mine just started playing it. There is it. I literally just answered it. Disco Elysium. There we go. So they specifically want to know, well, how do you resolve like combat encounters without combat? What if you wanted to run a more like My Little Pony style TTRPG or Disco Elysium, where there really isn't a combat system in Disco Elysium? Like, you can get into fights, but for the most part, you resolve everything through effectively role playing and kick encounters. Well, the easiest way to do that is to do something like what Modiphius does with their 2D20 system, is create a conflict resolution system that is universal enough that it can be used for combat conflicts. You can also use it for role-playing conflicts. You can use it for exploration conflicts. And having an encounter-based role-playing system makes it significantly easier to kind of switch between different things, like your combat system, your role-playing system, your exploration system. If all of them are resolved using the same encounter format, it makes things significantly easier to kind of switch between the two. As far as TTRPGs that do that well, like I said, Modiphius is the one that I tend to go to specifically. What is it just the Dune RPG, or does it have a name? What's it called? Dune Adventures in the Imperium. Like I said, it's made by Modiphius. It is a phenomenally good tabletop RPG. The first year that I started doing RPG stuff, or new RPG stuff for Daily December. That year, I did a different tabletop RPG every week, which was a mistake. One of the weeks, I ran a starter adventure for Dune Adventures in the Imperium, and it was so good. It's such a solid system, and the 2d20 the 2d20 system powers a ton of different TTRPGs. Yeah, we're playing. So they have a Cthulhu 2d20. They've got Fallout, Dune Adventures in the Imperium. I think Star Trek Adventures uses a modified version of the 2d20 system. Yeah, there's ton. It's nonsense just how many different 2d20 system stuff. Modiphius created a system, and then for some bizarre reason they decided to use it a lot. Who would have thought? But yeah, you know, if that's the route that you're going for a more role playing focused game, but you still want to have combat in there, focus on your first thing that you want to do is design your encounter system, and then find ways to fit your either attribute or skill based role playing framework into that encounter system. Can you resolve things using a narrative based thing? I mean, we talked about yesterday, there are narrative based combat systems. Powered by the Apocalypse tends to be significantly more narrative based than something like D&D or Pathfinder. So yes, you can use a narrative based combat system and a narrative based role playing system, but the thing that's going to make it easy or easier for both your players and your GM to be able to kind of mix and match of, well, this is supposed to be a combat encounter, but I want to resolve it using role playing instead, is use the same resolution system for both overarching systems. Your combat encounters need to be resolved in the same way that your role-playing encounters do. And that can be very difficult. It's one of the reasons I'm so impressed with the 2d20 system, because creating a single mechanic that resolves all these different situations is extremely difficult. It's why Dungeons and Dragons has been a skill-based RPG for as long as it has, has been a skill-based role-playing system with a class-based, encounter-based combat system, because it's just easier to have two completely separate systems that you don't have to worry about them interacting. So, yeah, interested to hear from you guys. Do you have a preference as to either attribute-based or skill-based? And do you have a preference for narrative-based role-playing versus encounter-based role-playing? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, is there a particular tabletop RPG that you feel does role-playing better than most? Are you a big fan of Fate? Are you, like me, very impressed with the 2d20 system? Where are my Essence 20 folks talking about how awesome the Essence 20 system is? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.